Putin recently assigned a new leader to the entire invasion of Ukraine. This leader was to be General Surovikin. He was sent to clean up the mess. And he was supposed to, with his iron fist, fix the issues of the Russian armed forces in Ukraine. Yesterday we got some info from it. I will sum it up for you. Kiev is about to mass missile strike Kherson and the Novakhovka nuclear power plant, without any regard to loss of life for civilians. So, to preserve the life of Ukrainian civilians and the life of Russian soldiers, we might have to pull out of Kherson in the near future. Bear in mind, these words come out of the mouth of a butcher, the bad guy Putin sent to clean up the mess. Turns out the Russian mess on the left side of the Dnieper River cannot be cleaned up. The only remaining surviving Russian regular army units are stuck there, and they have been withering away for weeks due to attrition. Lack of food, lack of ammunition, lack of medical supplies. The Crimean breach explosion further worsened the situation for them. Surovikin has two options on the left bank of Dnieper. Stay and hold your ground, losing the last trained regular Russian army units, or the second option, pull out, preserve the Russian regular army units, but lose Kherson and the left bank of Dnieper. Putin is allergic to losing ground. He usually sacks the generals who lose ground in Ukraine. Let's see how long Surovikin can hold on. My friends, before we jump to the military map, we actually have a sponsor today. I'm not an Estonian soldier anymore, or an Estonian YouTuber. I am now a Lord of Scotland, and these are my lands. Established Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom, where landowners, such as myself, are referred to as lairds, or lords and ladies in English. They allow people to buy as little as 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, and an official certificate with a crest, so that you can call yourself a lord or a lady. Bow before me, peasant. Off with your head. I'm supposed to be a nice lord. Off with your head. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. It makes a great last-minute gift. They even have couple packs that come with adjoining plots of land. You could officially change your name to Lord or Lady and get it on your credit card, plane tickets, etc. if your country allows it. You can even get it on your dating profiles. I mean, have you seen some lords up in Tinder? You're gonna be the first. Established Titles is committed to planting a tree with every order. It is a fun, novel way to help preserve the picturesque woodlands and biodiversity of Scotland while supporting global afforestation efforts. Established Titles is actually running a massive sale right now. Plus, if you use the code Estonian69, yeah, I'm not kidding you, the code is Estonian69, you get an additional 10% off. Established Titles told me that the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot, within a few minutes of walking. Depending on how many of you want to become a lord or a lady, we can build our own little kingdom. Go to establishedtitles.com/Estonian69 to get your gifts now and help support the channel. In Russian and Ukrainian telegrams, some ideas are circulating that Ukrainians might want to take Novakhovka, hugging the shore of the Dnieper, taking Novakhovka next to the shoreline, or straight up penetrating through the Russian lines and taking Novakhovka. Why is this important? It would play into the plan of surrounding Kherson. Crossing Novakhovka, Ukrainians might be able to cut off the retreating path for the Russians in Kherson, closing the encirclement. And for this movement to happen, Ukrainians wouldn't even need to focus on the left bank of the Dnieper. All of this area could be under Russian control, and Ukrainians would have cut off the only two bridges they can use to escape, Novakhovka and the Antonovsky Bridge. Of course, such a penetration so deep into enemy lines, that would be straight out of German blitzkrieg tactics, and it's very difficult to pull off because Ukraine does not have such an armored capability. They could attempt it with M113s and Humvees, but it's very dangerous. Time will tell what will happen. This is just a speculation. speculation here. Russians sent a text message to Kherson residents alerting them that evacuation to the other side of Dnieper river away from Kherson will begin at 7 in the morning. In his telegram, Russian installed Kherson official Kirill Stremwozov calls for people to evacuate the city as soon as possible. In his message to the people, he says Ukrainians will start shelling the city. Russians use this backwards philosophy. Everything they say the enemy is doing, they are planning to do. So we get some kind of an idea of what Russian plan is around Kherson by the fact that they are accusing Ukrainians of doing that thing in the future. So that means Russians will shell Kherson in the future and they're getting ready to do so. In these photos we can see that Russians have finished making a barge over the Antonovsky Bridge and it is now crossable again. The work was finished about 2 days ago, but the repair started in August, so it took almost 2 months to finish this. And the Antonovsky Bridge compared to the Crimean Bridge is small, so think about how long it will take them to fix the Crimean Bridge. But the fixing of Antonovsky Bridge allows Russians to resupply their units behind the Dnieper, and also it would allow them to pull out more efficiently. Now Ukrainians can attack this new area of the bridge if they want to, but they haven't. I think there's a reason. Perhaps Ukrainians want to leave this retreat option open for the Russians because that might be the only way for Ukrainians to take Kherson with minimal losses. Ukrainians don't want to do urban warfare on mass scale. It costs a lot of equipment and manpower, and if Russians pull out from the left bank of Dnieper and Kherson, Ukrainians liberate more land and liberate Kherson without major losses. It doesn't matter that Russians preserve their units. Ukrainians want this city back, and they want to save lives. So there is a lot of logic behind why Ukrainians are not destroying the new part of Antonovsky Bridge right now. On the 17th of October, satellite images show us that there are concentrations of Russian armor and supply vehicles waiting to get away from Kherson, waiting to cross the Antonovsky Bridge as soon as the barge is finished. That shows us that Russians are slowly evacuating also the military, or at least the officer corps of Kherson. I'm not stating that Russians just abandoned the city militarily, but I do think the officer corps and the higher ranking officers definitely will leave the city. We have a very interesting video of a Russian POW who was recruited from the Russian prison by a Wagner company, meaning he is a convict. He was a criminal in Russia, still is, a murderer. Let's watch his story together.
Резнев Владимир Валерьевич, 1902 года рождения, 07.09 года рождения.
За что вы сидели?
105 за убийство. Частная военная компания «Вагнер».
Как вы оказались в России?
Поставили весь лагерь на плац. 1200 человек. Встали на плац. Заехала бронированная машина. Вышло туда человек с 2 звездочками на левой груди. И представился, что частная военная компания. Предложил помочь Российской Федерации повоевать, ну и как смыть свои грехи кровью. Кто останется жив, свобода.
Alright, there's a huge issue with this. Prigozhin, who is the owner of Wagner, a very close friend to Putin, he is the person he's talking about. He is the one who talked to the convicts. He promised, after 6 months of serving the Russian Federation in Ukraine, they would get amnesty. They would get free, their sins and crimes washed away. They would get new documents, clean papers, money, everything. Well, the thing is, it is against Russian laws, so Putin and Prigozhin both know that none of these people will survive longer than 6 months and they wouldn't have to actually do it. They wouldn't have to actually grant amnesty to anybody because it's against law. They haven't changed the laws, so they have no right to grant these things unless they change the law, which they haven't. And knowing how they send these convicts to attack Bakhmut, which is a Ukrainian city still holding on, they just send waves after waves after waves, straight Second World War Stalin tactics. Prigozhin and Putin know these convicts are not coming back. They are there to waste Ukrainian ammunition, to lure out Ukrainian artillery positions who shoot at these convicts so the Russians can shoot at them. Pure cannon fodder. Promises stated to the convicts are just lies.
Деньги и чистые документы. Все.
Это человек представился?
Да.
Как его зовут?
Пригожин.
Ну, Prigozhin, yeah.
Много согласилось у вас идти?
Да. 267 человек.
So out of 2,200 people in his colony, 260 agreed to go. So it was like 1/5 1/6, something like that. That is a huge number because Russia has incredibly high amount of prisoners. If out of every prison such numbers go, they get 10 to 20,000 additional troops, additional cannon fodder just to send to die, just to lure out Ukrainian artillery positions or waste Ukrainian ammunition. So yes, these troops have an effect on the battlefield, unfortunately.
Владимир, ну бытует такое мнение, что вот зэков, да, набирают, да, сидельцев в тюрьмах, и потом их, собственно, используют как пушечное мясо.
Это так и есть. Да. Потому что я скажу, что который нас взял командиром, он говорит, я буду командовать. И я когда шел, мы троем шли впереди, метров 30-40, которые шли за мной, тоже зэки шли, и вот этот человек шел, он там уже дальше был. Повернулся, они очень далеко были. Видно, они хотели, ну, как обычно, пушечное мясо, чтобы знать, где что, какие позиции есть, кто стоит, все, ну, как пушечное мясо.
Вас когда вербовали, вы знали о том, как...
Paying for convicts, paying for the colonies to be, you know, fed, kept warm, it was all money out of Kremlin's pocket, so sending a lot of colonists, selling a lot of prisoners to die. Putin also sees this as decreasing the number of prisoners in Russia. Basically, he doesn't have to pay. Less prisoners, less money goes to feed them, goes to keep them warm.
Ну, вообще-то, когда нас вербовали, нам сказали совсем другую историю. Нам сказали, что вас сразу не кинут на передовую. Мы должны пройти были курс 2 недели, потом с опытными ребятами на втором плане смотреть, как они это делают, как зачистку эту делают, и прикрывать. Все. Ну, а тут совсем все не так.
So they were lied to, they were told that 2 weeks of training, even the freshly mobilized Russian civilians who were supposed to be higher class citizens than the convicts, they don't get 2 weeks of training. I mean, what would the convicts get?
Скажу, что, пацаны, я вот смотрю и говорю вам как есть, потому что я здесь. Что 6 месяцев вы не продержитесь в любом случае. Даже 2 дней можете не продержаться. Если есть возможность избежать этого, избегайте как можете. Подключайте мам, пап, пусть под зонами стоят с плакатами, ну, досидите свои срока и выйдите спокойной душой. Здесь не ваша война и не наша война. Они защищают свою землю. И они имеют полное право диктовать условия, потому что мы на их стороне, а не они на нашей. А Владимиру Владимировичу я скажу, завязывайте эту войну. Она ни к чему не приведет. Только жертвы. Уже и так 65 тысяч. Сколько надо жертв, чтобы все угомонилось.
A very eye-opening interview from this POW from Wagner. Let's take a moment and appreciate the fireworks. I don't understand what in Russian infantry fighting vehicles would cause such a fireball. Am I correct to assume that it has to be on a full tank with gasoline and fully loaded ammunition, and then it would make such a fireworks? Other than that, I don't understand how. Is it loaded with dynamite? Waiting for your expertise in the comments below. Zelensky posted that from October 10th, Russia has increased their terror bombings of Ukrainian civilian infrastructure, mostly with Iranian Shahed 136 drones. These attacks have by now damaged or destroyed 30% of the entire Ukrainian power stations, resulting in blackouts in hundreds of cities and settlements all over Ukraine. Russia is using Iranian drones in swarms. One Shahed drone costs about $20,000 to make, so it's a very, very cheap drone. They fly slow, low, and loud. But still, if you can make them so many, they will do the trick. Ukraine is usually able to shoot down about half of the drones sent their way, but the other half that gets through does a lot of damage. After the last attack in Kiev, Kievian air defenses have been bolstered, and about 2 days ago there was an attack of 16 Iranian drones against Kiev. The whole swarm of 16 drones were shot down before they connected to their targets. Other Ukrainian settlements need the same anti-air capabilities as Kiev. I like this drone footage for the sheer overkill that it is. We're witnessing a Russian ZIL or KAMAZ truck, a supply truck probably, a soft target. But look at the size of this munition and the explosion. This has to be a huge drone to be carrying such big shells. To take out this vehicle, all you need is a hand grenade in the engine compartment. But this knocked out cold the entire body of the vehicle. A few days ago, Russian Su-34 pilot crashed his fighter jet into a Russian apartment building in the city of Yeysk, western Russia. We have tons of videos about it. The pilot ejected. As much as we know right now, 14 civilians got killed. The official reason for the crash was a fire in one of the engines. But imagine how this pilot would feel knowing that he survived and 14 civilians didn't. In the past month, strangely, a lot of Russian fighter jets have been crashing. We have 3 different crashes in Russia in the past month. Fighter jets take a lot of maintenance hours for each 1 hour of flight. This is not done. It is very dangerous to operate that fighter jet. Fires can start, things can leak. NATO forces take maintenance very seriously. But in Russia things are different. They don't really maintain their equipment. And if your Air Force crashes 3 fighter jets in your own country in 30 days, this says something about the quality of the Air Force. Russian woman refuses to accept the fact that her son is in Ukrainian captivity. She demands a code word and hangs up the phone. You cannot blame her. I mean, Russian people have been brainwashed for the last 20 years straight, every night watching these propaganda shows. But let's watch the video together. This man here, the son recognizes his mother for sure, but his mother, who didn't speak to him yesterday because the son knows it, doesn't really want to hear about it. In Russia, it is not uncommon to see that the Tsar or the leader of the country is more important than family. It goes back to the Soviet times, it goes back to the Tsar era. The leader of the country is idolized like a god. And in this case, her son doesn't mean much to her, unfortunately. United Arab Emirates president has ordered the provision of $100 million in humanitarian aid to Ukraine. This aid will help the civilians affected in the ongoing crisis. I want to report this because I want to guide attention to it. Not all of the aid has to be weapons and munitions. This is very important, of course, but the civilians, somebody has to help them also. And I'm glad some countries do. The Russian Orthodox Church in Norway is buying up buildings with a view to Norwegian military bases. In recent years, the Russian Orthodox Church in Norway has purchased several properties. One of them has the full view of the country's most important naval base. The Russian Orthodox Church in Russia and abroad acts as an intelligence arm of the Kremlin. Estonia recently had the same issue with the Russian priest. The Estonian government threatened to send the priest out, but the priest confirmed to condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine and he was allowed to stay. If he wouldn't have condemned the invasion, he would have been sent out. There are spies in the Western countries wearing Russian priest robes. Be aware. Lockheed Martin CEO Jim Daislet says that the company will increase HIMARS production to 96 units per year. After HIMARS performance in Ukraine, every country wants it. Estonia has ordered only 6 because we cannot afford more. Poland has plans to order in hundreds. And if the production is only 96 per year, the waiting line will be pretty long. I hope Lockheed Martin has made the production lines of HIMARS scalable, because now would be the good time to scale the hell out of that production. My friends, I want to guide your attention. I have a second channel and I'm going to make podcasts in that channel. It's called the Estonian Soldier podcast. The link is in the description below. The first podcast will be with Jake Broe. I did one on his channel and now we're going to do one on my channel. Go and subscribe to the channel and watch the podcast. We're going to talk about nuclear topics, NATO, Estonia, Ukraine. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying with me. If you like what I do, then the Patron link and this Knock 'em Out Cold merch is in the description below. Until my next video, Slava Ukraine.